Hi everybody, Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, and today's contract tip is another update from GAR, a provision that got changed in the June 1st printing, the mid-year review of the GAR contract. So this is a change to the VA loan exhibit, which is GAR form F410. And it changed June 1st from January 1st of 2019. And I apologize for not putting this video out back in June when I did the other mid-year revisions. But I do want to thank Maximum One agent Elise Bailey for bringing this to my attention. And it is definitely worthy of a video. So let's look at what I'm talking about. If you go to the VA loan exhibit, and again, it is GAR form F410, previous years and including the January 1st version of the GAR contract that came out, we know, or you should know, that if there is a buyer that is getting a VA insured loan, there are certain fees that a seller is required to pay, or that a buyer is prohibited from paying. Now, this is in addition to any repairs. So, let me back up a little bit. In paragraph 13, it does talk about any repairs that are to be paid for by the seller. And the paragraph is 13 certain repairs paid for by the seller. And it specifically states, this part is not the different part. It says, any repairs required by the VA certificate of reasonable value, which is another way of saying the VA appraiser, shall be completed and paid for by the seller prior to closing, as long as such repairs do not exceed X amount of dollars. And that dollar amount is something for the buyer and the seller to negotiate. And then it says, if the anticipated costs actually exceed the amount that they have negotiated, an itemized estimate of the total amount of the repairs and overage of that shall be provided from a contractor that the seller selects. And then either buyer or the seller have the option of paying the difference or terminating. And that part is spelled out. That's paragraph 13. That's not the change. The change is, for a VA borrower, there are other items that the VA buyer cannot pay for. And one of the provisions specifically is the termite letter. Well, in the previous GAR contracts, and even in the one that came out January 1st of this year, in paragraph 14, and I did a video on this actually a year ago, not today, but this month, October of 2018, I did a video on what are the costs for a seller with a buyer getting a VA insured loan. And based on this GAR exhibit, previously it did say, notwithstanding any provision to the contrary contained herein in the agreement or any exhibit, the seller shall pay the following amounts to the extent that they're charged as part of the transaction. And it was a whole laundry list of items, including the termite letter. It said termite letter, loan closing or settlement fees, document preparation fees, preparing loan papers, attorney services other than for the title work, photographs, interest rate locks, postage, overhead. It's just a whole laundry list of items that the seller would be obligated to pay for a VA borrower without having any idea of what those items are. So there were some sellers that were potentially not accepting a contract with a VA borrower because of these unknown fees that the seller contractually would be obligated to pay. Well, in June 1st of this year, in the June 1 revision that GAR did, they have revamped that paragraph 14. And now under paragraph 14 of the VA loan exhibit, loan contingency exhibit F410, it says VA rules and regulations termite letter. The Veterans Administration has certain rules and regulations limiting the items for which the buyer can be charged relating to the closing of a VA loan. The buyer should consult with their mortgage lender to determine how the buyer may be affected by these VA rules and regulations. Notwithstanding any other seller contribution, the seller shall provide the buyer at or before the closing and at the seller's cost with an official Georgia wood infestation inspection report meeting the requirements of Georgia law. The termite inspection that is the basis of the report shall be conducted within 90 days prior to the date of closing. So thank you, GAR. We greatly appreciate that. Basically, what this is saying is that the seller in the contract is absolutely obligated to pay for the termite letter for the VA borrower. As far as any other fees that are going to be charged that the VA borrower is not allowed to pay, that needs to be a consultation between the VA borrower and the lender, and to determine who is going to pay for those fees that will be required but can't be paid by the VA buyer, him or herself. Is it going to be negotiated with the seller in terms of closing costs? Is it going to be a lender credit? Is it going to be something that one of the agents is going to contribute? Generally speaking, what we're seeing is that it is taken in with the closing costs that a seller has already agreed to contribute to a seller, or a lender credit. But I definitely wanted to bring to your attention that change in the GAR contract form that did change with their mid-year review, June 1, 2019, to help with these contracts, so that a seller is agreeing to go under contract with a buyer that is getting a VA insured loan, and there aren't all of these potential fees, unknown fees that they don't know the amount. So thank you, GAR. We appreciate that. Thank you, Elise Bailey, for bringing this to my attention, and I hope that everybody benefits from this information. So thank you so much for watching. Dana Sparks, broker of Maximum One Greater Atlanta Realtors, satisfying your needs with service, innovation, and education.